Now, before we dive into the content today, I just wanted to share a little bit more about Working Culture for those of you who are new to us. So Working Culture is a nonprofit art service organization focused on supporting the career development of people who work in the arts. And we work in support of all disciplines and creative practices. Now, most people know about us for our very popular job board, but we do so much more than that. We conduct workforce research, we create and host career resources, and we also develop, adapt, and deliver training, such as the programming that you are a part of today. Now, we do this work throughout Ontario, giving us an opportunity to connect with people in many different regions and communities. However, our office and our core team, including myself, are joining you today from the meeting place of Toronto, or Toronto, which for thousands of years has been the traditional land of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And today is still home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island. And we're grateful to have the opportunity to connect with people across Turtle Island through these virtual types of sessions. And while many of those on the webinar are also joining us from the same territory, if you are joining us from a different region, you're welcome to share and acknowledge that in the chat. So a bit more about the program that you're joining us for today, Working in the Arts, Resources and Pathways for Newcomers. So this programming consists of a series of training sessions, access to information and resources that we're developing and curating, all to help support newcomer and immigrant artists and arts professionals achieve career success in Toronto and beyond. So this is a pilot program funded by Canada Council for the Arts, and it's been informed by a needs assessment we conducted a few years ago called Navigating a Career in the Arts for Newcomers, where we explored the barriers and opportunities faced by new Canadians looking to start or expand their creative careers in Canada. So we're really hoping through this series to respond to the knowledge gaps that may exist among the primary communities that we have listed on the slide. And you can follow along on our website as we continue to populate our program page with upcoming webinars, recordings, and resources. And additionally, we're eager to get your feedback on today's session and also on the types of information that perhaps isn't covered yet that can help support you in finding or communicating about career opportunities and resources in the arts. So we'd appreciate you completing our feedback form that Naomi will share a little bit later on. So that brings us now to today's session, where our guest speakers will be taking both a practical look at some grant and funding initiatives available to newcomer artists and arts professionals, while also providing some guidance on the overall grant and funding landscape and processes. So I'm very pleased to welcome and introduce our guest speakers for today's session. So we have Fanny Martin, who is the Creative Director of Arts Festivals and a regular collaborator with Working Culture. Inés Aguileta, who is the Program Manager for Toronto Art Foundation's Neighbourhood Arts Network, and Khadija de Paula, the Interim Strategic Programs Manager for Toronto Arts Council. So in terms of today's agenda, we will start with Fanny, who will be leading us through a short presentation to help start framing this discussion by speaking to her experience as someone who has applied for and received funding. Then we'll move on to presentations from Kadija and Inés, where they will each provide an overview of their organization's specific resources and offerings. And from there, Fanny will lead our guest speakers through a panel discussion to bring up specific opportunities and resources for newcomers and other considerations when it comes to pursuing grants and funding. And then, as mentioned earlier, we will open the floor to some questions for the audience. And we will ask you to keep your questions as broad as possible and perhaps a little bit more general to benefit others in the room. And if you do find that you perhaps have questions about a grant that you're applying for or an application that you currently want feedback on, we'll be able to direct you to be in touch with Kadija and Inés directly to have a more detailed conversation about that. So without further ado, I am going to stop sharing my screen for now and turn things over to Fanny.
Thank you so much. I will share my screen now and we'll find a presentation. Here we are and start the slideshow. So thank you so much, Steph, for giving that overview and starting us on that Grant for the Arts in general, journey, it's great to be able to have a focus on what we're talking about today, which is grants for newcomers in the Greater Toronto area, because all grants are really specific in general to an area, a discipline, even a sector. We're talking about grants for the arts today. And I will talk from the point of view of a practitioner. So I wanted to give a bit of an overview of, introduce some other terms and concepts and ways of working in the arts, because what we don't know at large, for the people who are in attendance today is where you're at in your journey, how long you've been in Canada, what you need right now. So if you also tell us in the chat, as Steph was mentioning, that, some content resonates more with you and you would like us to talk more about this, we can do. It's really important for us to have that feedback. And this is your session. We're doing this for the people in the room today and for the recording as well. So it's great to be able to react to your needs. So my company is called Art of Festivals. It's a company with the mission to bring more art into everyday life and more life into the arts. And I wanted to break down on that first slide how that translates into an income model. So I do projects that are on the creative producing sides, and these projects are funded by grants and they're financed by commissions from cultural institutions. We go into co-production deals as well, and we get presentation fees. So I work especially in the performing arts. So this is a long cycle kind of project type. Grants are long to write, long to obtain, and then the projects themselves can unfold across 1 year, 2 years, maybe 3 years. It can be long. And then to complement or balance this creative producing income model, I do what I call strategic producing, which in essence is earned income, or we can call it fee for service as well. So that's contracts. And for me as a producer, it translates as research and sometimes project management, and I can do conference production, things that have a beginning and an end, and I get paid for it. For practicing artists, it could be teaching as well. So that's just one way to start introducing the balance that we all need to achieve between grants and then what complements the grants, because even on the grants budget, you will need to show additional income, especially as you progress in your grants career. So my second slide actually is about my granting journey, because I feel like actually I didn't start that long ago. I mean, I was working first for various institutions, especially in the UK, and I was working on grants, but for other people, so as part of an organization. And in 2015 is the first time that I wrote one grant for one artist with one artist, and we got it. And it's a composer based in London, and the project is still going on. So that's for me a real success in that we started with a seed grant, and it really helps with creating, like a upwards spiral, basically, of, like getting people interested in the project, getting more audience, getting more presenters. So this is a good grant journey for sure. Then I just wanted to pepper a few names of grantors to, just widen the landscape and see that, you have national funders often. So in Canada, it's the Canada Council for the Arts. So we call it the federal level, and then provincial level. And so I've put a few names here, such as Ontario Arts Council. And then municipal level will be Toronto Arts Council. And the great thing in Canada is that you can actually work with all three levels of funding to create balanced budgets and to find, different ways of supporting your creative projects. I've put a few other things on that slide, which are to do with travel grants. So that's something that I benefit from to go to conferences and fairs. And sometimes it could be, to go and present something for your work, or to go to a showcase and meet some curators. Canada Council for the Arts also provides professional development and artistic development grants. So these are also really good, just first grants in some ways, because you don't need to have you don't need anything else to get this grant. You don't need additional budget. And then I continue to write grants for artists. And again, there's a lot of programs out there that can support specific projects. Sometimes you need to go into discipline specific. Sometimes it's more about community engagement. There's a lot to learn and read about this whole granting journey. And I wanted to mention on that slide that I, get unsuccessful applications sometimes, and you always need to build that into your cycle. And what we're going to have today, after I finish with a couple more slides that are more about tips, but I want to mention that every time I apply for a new grant, I go through the same process of reading everything about the grants, reading everything about the funder, trying to find who got funded before and for what level of financing, and talking to the program officer, going to the webinar, perhaps where they do an information session. So what we're going to have today with Inez and Kadija is exactly the kind of information that gets you started and gets you on, in the position to be successful. It's never recommended to go cold. It's not that easy in some ways, in that, there are some tricks. You need to know, why a question is phrased that way, or you need to answer all the prompts. I'm going to get into my tips now. But so today, whatever your specific needs are, what we're going to get from Inés and Khadija is a really good deep dive into what a grant can be. My guiding questions for grants, sharing this with you, and perhaps you will find your own guiding questions. I always try to think, why this project, why now? So why does it need to happen right now? And timeliness is really important in making the case for your grants, because otherwise, if you're not that urgent, if you can't prove that if it doesn't happen now that we're missing an opportunity, then it could go to someone else. So that's also a reminder that grants are competitive, and we'll probably get way more into that in our dialogue. It's great for you to start thinking, why does it need to happen? Who is it for? What will it change at large for you and in the world? My second guiding question is, why you? And actually, you can think of this as a job application. And when you apply for a job, you need to really, go big on you're the perfect candidate. You will do the job, better than anyone else. So it's kind of the same positioning. Why are you uniquely qualified to undertake this project? What's your track record? Why should the jury trust that they can make your grant successful, and you'll do the project, and it will be just as good as you say on paper. So that's really good to back it up as well. And then thinking about what's in it for them, for funders and sponsors, and anyone giving the money has criteria. Are you meeting them? And how well are you meeting them? And are you meeting them creatively? Are you advancing their goals? So that's the research to be done in advance. And it's also great to think about audiences, participants, even donors. What do they get from your project? What does it change in their life? So what is your effort, to get this grant money doing for yourself, for your practice, for the sector, and for other people? And my last slide is just a few more tips, and we'll get into more tips later, but it's just to get you thinking about what are your tips when you're writing essays, for example? So I started with just like an essay, answer the questions. What do the funder want to know in order to assess your application? Make sure you're addressing all the prompts that they may be giving you. Be structured. I use headlines, within my grant text. I use like a very structured kind of way of writing, and especially being clear about what you want to do, who is it for, all the things that I covered before. Someone should read your grant and then be able to say in 2 sentences, that's what this person wants to do, and that's what the result will be. So crystal clear. Second super important tip is to manage expectations, and that's yours and other people's. So a grant is never guaranteed, never ever guaranteed, for a number of reasons that we'll cover in a minute. So you can't make promises, and just to be careful about engaging, for example, your financial funds. It's a long game and it's not personal if you don't get it this time. And then don't hold back, really be passionate, be yourself, avoid humor is my number one tip. But apart from that, just be, you want to do this project, you deserve to do this project, you can say that as long as it's clear. And my final tip before I hand over is to find joy in the process. It's part of our work as cultural practitioners and artists, and it's an occasion, an opportunity to talk about your project and to persuade other people to come with you on the journey. So yeah, don't hold back. That was just for context, a little bit of stepping back, thinking about what do grants do in the wider ecology. So now we're going to hear from Kadija de Paula, who is at the Toronto Arts Council, talking about the newcomer programs in particular. So that's the deep dive into a program that will give you all the inside information that every single grant you will apply for, you will need to go back into that. So a great case study. Over to you, Kadija.
Thank you, Fanny. Hello, everyone. As Fanny mentioned, I'm Kadija de Paula. I'm the Interim Strategic Programs Manager at the Toronto Arts Council. And I was a newcomer myself. 20 years ago, I came to Canada from Brazil, and I was introduced to how things work here. And here I am. So let me share with you some of the things we do here at the Toronto Arts Council. Just a moment, and I'll share my screen. Yay. All right. So the Toronto Arts Council is, and I'll pass it on to the next one. My slide is a little bit dense as a way that it can be shared with you later on. But the Toronto Arts Council has been around since 1974. It funds artists in Toronto. I know that many of you are not in Toronto. And for us, Toronto is a postal code with M. It's not the GTA. It's not Mississauga. So be aware of that. Toronto is the Toronto area. And the Toronto is funded by the city. The Toronto Arts Council is funded by the City of Toronto to support artists through grants. And that's what we call here in Canada, and it applies to the other arts councils, arm's length funding. So government money is given to an arts council, which is a government-funded agency that then invites other people to make the decisions. So what does that mean is that grants are assessed on a peer-based evaluation. So I'm not the person assessing your grants. I am the person inviting the people who will decide who gets a grant. And these people, they're invited on the basis of the applications themselves. What kind of applications are we getting? What's the representation? So I'll talk to you a little bit about some of our grants. The Toronto Arts Council grants are divided into discipline grants, and that is community arts, dance, Indigenous art, literary arts, music, theater, vision media arts. There's also Black arts, which is not on my list. Sorry about that. And those are considered discipline grants. And they have a funding envelope for that. So that's separate from the grants that I manage, which are the strategic program grants. And I'm making this distinction because you can get only one of them per year, one discipline, one strategic. We can get into more details about that later. And the strategic programs within the Toronto Arts Council are animating Toronto parks, animating historic sites, artists in the library, animating Toronto streets, open door, newcomer arts and refugee artist mentorship, and arts engagement. And those are the ones that I'm going to focus on. There's also digital solutions, CEC Leaders Lab. You can ask me questions later on, but I'll focus on the newcomer ones. And to apply for them, to these programs, you should go to our website and you find this page with the newcomer and refugee artist grants. The newcomer and refugee arts engagement program is dedicated to organizations and collectives. And the newcomer and refugee artist mentorship is dedicated to individuals. I will get into the mentorship program, because I think most of you here are individual artists, and so I'll focus a little bit on that. This program, the Artist Mentorship Program, I'm sorry, my phone's ringing. So this program is dedicated to newcomer artists, and newcomers for the Toronto Arts Council is defined as someone who has been in Canada for less than 7 years. So if you arrived in Canada after January 1st, 2016, you are a newcomer. Anyway, I'll stick to the slide first. But so the idea is that you get a $10,000 grant, $5,000 for yourself as an artist, and $5,000 to a mentor who will be working with you. You need to have a mentor before you apply. So we'll get into that soon. But as I mentioned, a newcomer is someone who's been here for less than 7 years, is a professional artist. And our definition of professional artist is someone who practices their own art, who seeks to show their work publicly, who seeks payment whenever possible. And we do understand that this varies for various reasons, circumstances of where you're coming from, what's your background. So if you're not sure if you are considered a professional artist, feel free to give me a call and we can talk about it. This grant is dedicated to people who have not received this grant before. You can only get it once. And you should not be enrolled in an undergraduate program. And you should be a resident of Toronto. In other words, your postal code need to start with an M. How does it work? So you'll be matched, you find a mentor, and you apply together, so to work together for a period of a year, more or less. You can develop together with your mentor whatever program fits your needs. So what do you want to do to integrate yourself in Toronto? And that will be a conversation with your mentor. You don't need to create work together. You can meet weekly, you can meet every 2 weeks, you can meet once a month, you can maybe collaborate or not, you can go out together, you can network. Your mentor can be a peer, can be someone that does something similar to what you do, or can be someone who is in another field. For example, if you're a visual artist, maybe you want to have a curator as a mentor. Or if you are in theater, maybe you want to have a director as a mentor. Those are just some random options, but we can talk more about that. Mentors can be a mentor for only one artist at a time per year. And well, if you need help finding a mentor, of course, you're a newcomer, you don't know anyone in town. So there is the amazing Neighbourhood Arts Network mentor matching service. The Neighbourhood Arts Network is an organization under the umbrella of the Toronto Arts Foundation. And we work together in a partnership where the Neighbourhood Arts Network can support you in your efforts finding a mentor. There's no guarantee. But they will do they do an amazing work of finding out what your needs are and helping you find someone that is suitable for yourself. I'm passing the time, but anyway, Inés will get into that, introducing the Neighborhood Arts Network. And just to share with you a little bit of our timeline for this grant. If you need help finding a mentor, you can do that until the end of this month. March 24th is our deadline to find a mentor, to help you find a mentor. April 24th is the grant deadline here with me. You'll hear back from us in July, and then you should complete your mentorship by June of next year. I could go on and on, but I won't. I will leave that to the panel, and I'll pass it on to Inez, who can talk more about the mentor matching support and all other service they provide.
Thank you, Khadija. It's very nice to see all of you here. I do recognize some names, so I'm very glad about that. My name is Inez. I use pronouns she, her, and I am a Latin American woman. I have long black hair, and I'm currently wearing a gray dress, and I also have glasses. So I am a program manager at Toronto Arts Foundation's Neighbourhood Arts Network. And first, I want to thank Stephanie and Naomi and the entire Work and Culture team for giving me the opportunity to be here and share with you my experience and knowledge around opportunities and supports for newcomer artists. I am originally from Mexico, and I immigrated to Canada in 2009. My education background is in graphic design and cultural project management. And for the past years, I've had the pleasure of working and supporting newcomer artists through my work at Neighbourhood Arts Network. And it has been an incredible and fantastic learning experience that I'm incredibly grateful for. Next slide, please. The Neighbourhood Arts Network, or NAN, as we are known in the community, is an initiative of Toronto Arts Foundation. It is a citywide network of about 2,000 members, including artists, arts organizations, cultural workers, and community agencies that are working throughout the city of Toronto and the GTA. It was established by Toronto Arts Foundation in 2010 to serve the needs of community engaged artists and community organizations, as well as to serve as a resource for neighborhood residents. And over the past 13 years, we have grown to provide a forum for discussion and information sharing, as well as access resource, professional development, mentorship, as well as other services and supports to Toronto artists, and as well as beyond. Next slide, please. I'm not going to show the video just in the interest of time, but I have shared that resource for you in case you want to watch it later. So we have 4 main areas of work. Next slide, please. Mentorship, creative entrepreneurship, Newcomer Spotlight Program, and Arts and Equity. The first program in our mentorship. Next. And next, please. The first one in our mentorship component is the Mentoring Residence Program. And this is a program that supports artists and arts workers working in all disciplines through one-on-one free virtual consultations with industry professionals. And this artists from the GTA and also outside of the GTA are able to access this. And some of the topics that have been discussed and the mentors that we have are grant writing, career planning. If you have a project but you can't bring it down to more concrete goals. That's something you can get support on, and as well as marketing and communications. As a mentee, you can access multiple mentors and have between 1 and 4 sessions if you want with the same mentor, or 1 session with 4 mentors, with 4 different mentors. Next, please. And as Khadija mentioned, I also play a role in the Newcomer and Mentorship program. And the role that we do is we provide support for newcomer artists who are looking to apply to the grant program for Toronto Arts Council. I provide mentor matching support. So I would have a one-on-one meeting with you where I will get to know more about what are your goals as an artist, what are you looking for in terms of moving within your career path, and I will try my best to find you a suitable mentor. You would then, I would introduce the 2 of you via email. Then you have a conversation and see if you're a good fit. If you are, then you move forward to applying to the grant program. Since 2016, I have made 100. Well, myself and a colleague we have made 188 matches, and 62 of those matches have been successful in receiving the grant. Next slide, please. We also have creative entrepreneurship. And the first program of creative entrepreneurship is Making a Living Making Art. Next slide, please. And Making a Living Making Art is a professional development series that focuses on providing tools and resources for artists to have a sustainable arts practice. And this goes, financially, mentally, physically, all those resources that are needed for artists to really be able to make a living out of making their art. So we do that through conversations, through workshops, as well as one-on-one grant writing clinics in partnership with major funding bodies like Toronto Arts Council, Ontario Arts Council, and Canada Council for the Arts. I should also mention that all our programming is free and can be accessed by artists in Toronto, in the GTA, and for most of them as well can be accessed for those outside of the GTA. Next, please. The next program is called RXTO, and it's our most recent program, and it has a focus on youth media arts who want to further their experience in mentorship, skills training, and also get a professional experience. And we have a 3rd cohort. Applications are closing on Monday, this coming Monday. So if you are between those ages and are a media artist, I would certainly encourage you to look at this program. Next slide, please. The next one too. And our Newcomer Spotlight program, we have 3 components. The first one is Let's Talk Art, which is a platform for newcomer artists to access best practices as well as tools from professional artists, arts leaders, and creative businesses in order for them to continue developing their creative practice here in Canada. And we're going to be opening this series in May, and it's going to continue through the fall. And some of the topics that we have covered is curatorial practices. We got to visit the curatorial department at RBC. We cover mental wellness and also finding community, that it's very important in sustaining an arts practice here in Canada, and also decolonization. Next, please. We also have two Newcomer Arts Awards. Two Newcomer Awards. The first one is the Newcomer Arts Award, and this is a small award that is designed to support the future potential of a newcomer artist across the GTA. as well as the impact that, it's to support the future potential of newcomer artists here in Canada. And the award is $2,500. Nominations just closed, but a new round of nominations will be opening in December of this year. And to be eligible, you need to be an artist who has been living here in Canada for 7 years or less, be a Canadian citizen, permanent resident, or have an approved refugee claimant, or have applications pending, be over 18 years old, be a resident of the City of Toronto or Houghton, Peel, or York or Durham municipalities. And in the case of the 2024 award, you should not have received the award in 2023, so the previous year. Next, please. And the Newcomer Space Award. This one focuses on providing affordable space for creation or for exhibition for newcomer artists who are past recipients of the Newcomer Arts Award. We award 6 recipients or 6 artists every year, and they receive $2,000 credit to a kin to get either a studio space or exhibition space, and $500 cash to support their arts practice. The eligibility for this is you need to be a recipient of the Newcomer Arts Award, live in the City of Toronto or GTA, and you can only receive this award one time per calendar year. And I'm really proud to say that since this award started, we've had 141 recipients from 31 countries and over $210,000 awarded to newcomer artists. And next slide, please. And next is our Newcomer Week, and that's going to be happening in the month of May. And that is a week of in-person and online activations that are showcasing art created by newcomer artists. And that's going to be happening the week of May 22nd, I believe. That's when it starts, because we want to be also part of Newcomer Day, which is going to happen May 25th at the City of Toronto. And I think I'm going to wrap it up here. I'm very excited to just continue the conversation with Khadija and Fanny on the panel. But my information is in the presentation that will be shared with you as well.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Kadija and Inés, for this whirlwind tour of your granting world. So there's a lot of programs that we covered, and we see questions in the chat about specifics and getting links. And, you know, this is an overview of a few programs. It's really good for everyone to know that there are so many more available, so many other funders actually who have their own criteria, they have their own deadlines. So what will tend to happen after a while is that you get into a groove. So we're talking here about first grants in some ways, and that's help upon arrival. You know, to like you've arrived in Toronto, you're professional artists. There are some resources available for you. There's advice, there is money, there's a network support. I'd like to know, Kadija and Inés, what you think these grants and the support available plays, what role it plays in the career of newcomer artists. Kind of what trajectories have you seen, or what do you wish they will go on to be doing after they've been, you know, welcomed into this newcomer support network and accessed the available supports? What's the bigger picture, and what do you wish?
Right, maybe I'll start with my point of view of being an artist as well. I think we're talking about grants, but before we talk about grants, we're talking about art. So everyone here is an artist, and that's the base of your practice. And that's what you should concentrate your time on. And that's what we do. I don't do that as much right now because I'm here, but as an artist, that's what you should do. And I think as a newcomer, there's often this idea of like, wow, there's like this world of grants, which is not common everywhere. It does exist, and here it's very systematic and it's really part of the scene. But again, the main practice is your art. The thing with grants is that your work, doesn't matter what it is, will be assessed in a combination of whatever it is: dance, visual arts, music, and writing. So writing will become part of your practice. And perhaps, I mean, in my role, I hope that this newcomer grants, they are a stepping point, like an introduction to give you a hand, to get acquainted to how things work here, because it's not easy to arrive. We know that. And the Newcomer Mentorship Grant is something that we cherish a lot because it's a human connection. It's someone that can help you go through a process, but it's beyond the grant, it's meeting someone. And as Inés said, not everyone who will be matched with a mentor will get a grant, which is heartbreaking. But I think our goal as funders is to help you out, to be introduced to the city, and hopefully find out other ways to continue making your work. And that could be through becoming part of an art market, finding out ways to be more entrepreneurial, also applying to other grants. But be aware that grant writing is not going to help you survive. You need to do other things. And well, we can go on and on. I'll stop here.
Yeah. Inés, what's your overview on all the artists you meet, all the newcomer artists you meet? They start with the Neighbourhood Art Network, and what happens next?
So it's I find that every artist that I meet with is unique. The thing that they all have in common is that they are so hungry to continue doing their art. They, this is what they live for, right? This is their job. This is what they want to keep on doing. And I think in one way or another, every single, or maybe not every single artist, but I would say 90% of the artists that I meet with, they all want to explore in one way or another the process of immigration through their art. And I can't really speak from the grant perspective. I can speak from the award perspective, which is what Toronto Arts Foundation does. And it has been incredible to meet some artists who have applied to the award and they receive it, and the change that it has in their practice. It's not a big amount of money, but they felt we've had this award, there was a couple of artists that have compared the award and the recognition as like their art visa. Like now they are the permission to continue doing their art here. They feel that the door has been opened. They feel that they're able to put this in their CV and talk about it with pride. So that's something really interesting. I never thought that an award could be compared to a visa. Like I've, as someone from Mexico, I've required visa to many countries, and it's always something. A visa is not something that I necessarily have a good association with. But the fact that they see that as that kind of reassurance that, like, yes, you are a professional artist and we are seeing you and we are recognizing the work that you're doing here. It's quite amazing. I can tell you about an artist who I met in the first year of the Newcomer Mentorship program. And he had been here for, I think, maybe a couple of months. He came here as a refugee, and he came here, and then he was not able to go back to his country because the art that he had done had made him a target. And I was in conversation with him, and I matched him he's in theater. I matched him with a mentor, and the work and where he is now, like 7 years after, it's just fantastic to see the growth. He received that grant. He also received twice the Newcomer Arts Award. He has performed at Newcomer Week, Newcomer Day in Toronto. He recently starred in a play written by another award recipient. And the work that he's been doing, it's quite amazing. So it's that, I feel that it's a bit of a push, like, yes, you can do it, like a bit of a safety net as well. So yeah, like all the supports that we do, and everyone in the Neighborhood Earth Network team, we've all been newcomers at some point. So we all really identify with the experience, and really we love it when artists come to us and say, like, I'm struggling with this, how can you help me? And even if we don't know the answers, we're always going to find, we're always going to connect you with someone who might be able to help you and basically help you build that community and build that network. I think both you, Khadija, and Fanny, you touched on grants are not the only thing. I think community it's huge. Networking, getting to know who is doing what, why are they doing it, how are they doing it, and talking to them. I feel that those are some of the things that I've seen when artists do that, they are able to they're able to continue doing their art a lot faster.
Pick up on this recognition point that you made, because an award, even small, even a grant, getting selected by a jury of peers, it is a form of confirmation and a permission to create and be a professional artist. So it's hard when we don't get the grants, but as I said in my presentation, it is not personal. There is a competitive process at play. It's not because the jury doesn't like your project or doesn't like you. It's really never that. I've been in juries, and it's really just heartwarming how the peers are really passionate about being precise and reading everything very thoroughly, listening to absolutely everything, or watching what you provide in your application. So there is a lot of care, and never think that the funders are not there for you. There's no us and them. This is something that I think sometimes we fall into too quickly. We're all there to create art, and it's just different ways of making it happen. And actually, let's go into another aspect of what we want to cover today, which is support available. So you, as program officers, you're providing information, you're providing feedback as well. What else would you recommend that future applicants can do? Support networks. Someone in the chat mentioned the lassos in Toronto, which are the local arts support organizations. And there's some, I can't remember how many there are now, maybe 10 or 7. So they are in different districts, different neighborhoods of Toronto. There is North York Arts, there is Scarborough Arts, Lakeshore Arts, Etobicoke Arts. So you can have a point of contact where you live if you're in Toronto's suburbs. What else would you recommend? Maybe let's go back to Kadija.
Well, sorry, there's a opening. I guess the lassos are really a great resource. The local art service organizations. There are other kinds of arts organizations, like community arts organizations, or even settlement agencies. So I didn't have much time to get into, but the other newcomer program that we have that is dedicated to arts collectives and arts organizations, nonprofit organizations, is about newcomer engagement. So maybe you are, and I saw some questions, but maybe you're an arts worker or a curator, a producer, you work with arts, but you're not an artist yourself. You wouldn't be eligible to apply for the newcomer mentorship program, but you could, together with other artists or arts workers, apply to any arts discipline program, really. But there's also this opportunity of engaging with newcomers. And I want to be careful here, because the idea is not really newcomers engaging with newcomers. We want everyone to engage with newcomers. But anyway, that's one possibility, for example. And these programs that come out, like the projects that come out from this funding, they're also a great opportunity for newcomers to connect and engage with. And go out. I know it's hard, it's cold, it's far, but it is important. So if you are a visual artist, go to openings, become a member of large institutions, museums. They usually do their opening night the night before, and then we don't find out. If you're a member, they will invite you. If you can do a membership, go to the free night events to the museums. If you are into performing arts, go to anything you can. That's a way of meeting people. And if you have any questions, call us. We are great resources. We are funded by the government to help out, and we do answer our calls, and we're very approachable. So do give us a call.
That's true. And Inés, you already presented, quite a lot of what the Neighbourhood Arts Network does, but what networking opportunities can we signpost people to at this moment? Because yes, community is important, and so many people are ready to help. Just a question, doesn't cost you anything to answer. So where can people meet?
So all the programming that we used to do was in person. So that was a great place to meet other artists. Obviously, with the pandemic, we switched to virtual, and we are going back to in person and trying to figure out how we can create that networking and that community, bring artists together again in a space where everyone feels safe. So we've had some word receptions, but we started doing very small. We're going to start doing a Neighborhood Arts Network book club. So come read a book, and then come join us and let's talk about it. We are starting our drop-ins as well, where folks, artists can just drop in between a specific day, specific hours, and just chat, have tea, have cookies with us. We usually have special guests. So that's a great place to start. Similar to what Khadija say, go out as much as possible, and also just send an email. If there's an organization or someone that you want to connect with, send an email introducing yourself and asking them about their journey. How did they get to where they're at? Everyone likes talking about themselves, especially if you are asking them how they got there. And very few times I've heard people say, no, I can't. And if they don't, it's not because they don't want to talk to you. It might just be because of time or other commitments, but keep going, and just, yeah. So that's what I would say. Go to workshops.
Excuse me.
And
May I ask you a question?
I think we'll take questions at the end, maybe if that's okay.
Sorry.
Just got a couple of more questions to cover in the panel. You can put it in the chat for now, if that's okay.
And, you know, just like Khadija said, always talk to the program managers, talk to us. If you don't want to, if you don't know who to connect with at Ontario Arts Council or Canada Council or Toronto Arts Council, send me an email. I'll find a person and I'll connect you. I can make that connection. And if they don't get back to you, I'll send them an email and be like, hey, you know, I see you haven't responded to Kadija. Can you please do so? So, you know, I've met with one-on-one with many people, and I'm always trying to just support them.
Yeah, I have found program officers also really very approachable. It's just a matter of timing. They have hundreds of conversations to have and other things to organize in the back end, but information sessions about grants are also very valuable. And then that's a great time to first do the information session and then get a private one-to-one, because then you already have a lot of answers to your potential questions and you can get into specifics. And sometimes the program officer will even review your budget if it's the first time. So there's really a lot that they can do for you. I mean, first time applicants, you get a lot of care, I find, and attention. Don't hesitate, because, you know, then after a while, they need to prioritize, right? So you get more priority as a first timer, and then you'll get feedback from most funders about your first application as well. And that's really precious. Networking, like we said, so important. I mean, this is where you could also find co-mentors in some ways, or you could be in a peer relationship with other artists. You can read each other's grants. You can give each other tips. You know, it's very precious to just be able to exchange this information on a informal level. Another question I'd like to address with Inés and Kadija is what's next when you get your grant or you don't get your grant? It's two very different scenarios, actually, but you know, I'm personally, as a producer, I'm always ready for absolutely everything. You know, that's what you need to do in your planning. So there's always the, yes, we get the money, no, we don't get the money, and different planning scenarios that happen. Maybe let's start with, if you don't get these grants, what do you do? Let's start with maybe Kadija.
Do you want me to start?
Oh, you can start, Inés, yes.
I was going to say that, kind of building on to what I was saying about the networking, I think making sure that you have or know how to do partnerships and build relationships with either other organizations or other artists. If you don't receive the grant and you have a great partnership with an organization, they might be able to provide some resources, maybe space or maybe you know, some funding as well in partnership with that organization. So I think, you know, if you receive the grant or if you don't receive the grant, I think building relationship with the program managers, with other people that receive the grant. You know, this information is public. Reach out to them and say like, hey, I saw your project. I'm very interested in learning more. Let's chat. Maybe we can collaborate. You know, that's kind of a, yeah, I guess sharing of resources. If it becomes really important. Another thing is, sometimes if you incorporate as a non-for-profit, you're able to access grant or funds from the city or from different levels of government. So that's also something to consider, ways in which you can kind of find smaller loopholes, and that will give you access to other opportunities outside of just the grants. Build relationships with big corporations, you know, and follow up, talk to them, because sometimes they have the money and they are willing to sponsor in order to get some benefits. or they're willing to form partnerships to make them look good.
Yeah, sponsorship is really important. And maybe we can say here that, a proposal is not very different from a grant in some ways. You just need to be just as passionate and clear, that creative tension. The project needs to enthuse people who are learning about it, but also needs to be very feasible. It needs to be viable. It needs to have clear outcomes and goals. So there's this, creative balance that we're playing with. Maybe, Kadija, we can go to you with, what do we do if we do get the grant? What are the next steps? What happens? You've applied and then you get the letter and the letter says, yeah. Then what do we do next?
Okay, what do you do next? Well, one good thing is to have your information ready so that you can get paid. You would be surprised with the amount of people that we have to run after so that they can get paid. So this is very important. And for the newcomer programs, for example, you need to have a social insurance number. This is one of the reasons why we ask for some kind of pending status, because you do need to have a social insurance number to receive bank accounts and so on. But in general, that's when the work starts. And it's, myself as an artist, when you get a grant, it's often far after you put all that work into it, and then all of a sudden you're like, what? I got the grant, and now what? Now I'm doing 10,000 other things, and how I'm gonna fit this into my life? So this is a question you have to fit in within the rest of your work. How are you going to do it? In the case of the mentorship program, how are you going to make time to meet with someone on a regular basis? So be prepared. And I think once you're writing your grant application, project also, is it feasible? Can I do that? Do I have this time? Is that something that's really going to make a difference? Sometimes we think about the money figure and we don't think about all the work that we're going to have to put into it. And then after you do whatever you propose to do in your grant, you're going to have to report, which is also work. For the newcomer programs, they're not so much work intense. It's an easy report. You just tell us how it went. Hopefully it was great. You can tell if it went badly. The final report's also a space for you to complain. Feel free to say bad things. So if you do get the grant, it's a consideration. How are you going to do it? And also when you're applying for a grant, when you don't get, as Fanny said, try to find some joy in it and learn with this process. It's a way of learning how to write about your work. It's a way of keeping your images up to date. It's a way of keeping your documentation in a good state of your work. So there is a positive side. I think just an afterthought after you asked about resources, keep looking at working culture, create a notification, a bookmark for those resources that we're sharing with you, the Neighborhood Arts Network, the Arts Councils. Akimbo is also a website that has a lot of open calls, so look at it. Make a calendar of deadlines. If you don't have a job, that will fill up your time. Be sure there's enough opportunities to keep you busy. If you do get a job, be careful also. Don't overwork yourself, and always focus on your artwork. This is the most important thing. Grants after.
That's a lot of tips that we just whizzed through. Let's do a final round of tips before we open up for questions. And we're going to get Steph as well on board because she's also a grant writer and a successful one. So just top tip, and I'll start with mine because I've mentioned it already. My top tip is to pretend that I'm loving writing the grants. And then somehow it seems to work. You know, every time I start a new grant, I'm like, oh yeah, this is one of my favorite things that, you know, goes with my job. So, you know, like the whole partnership building and making sure that everything is really in line with the desired result, etc. I take a lot of care in doing it, but I also really try to have joy in it. Let's go to Steph to hear your voice. Top tip when you're making a successful grant.
Top tips. Well, I think we started to mention a few of them, but I know for myself, and I tell myself this every single time I start a grant. It doesn't always work out, but, you know, at least I try. Start as far in advance as possible as you can. You know, it is a lot of work. It is part of the administration of being either an artist or an arts professional. And, you know, oftentimes we don't give ourselves enough time to really take the care to, you know, write about what we want to do, really convey the impact that we're trying to achieve and understand how we're going to do it. And in that same vein, you know, I think Inés was speaking about it earlier, you know, understand how our collaborators will fit into that conversation. The more time that you give yourself, the better, you know, equipped you are going into applying for the grant, and also in terms of managing your own expectations. And then one other, you know, tip that, you know, it seems so simple, but it's helped me out immensely. You know, I get people to read my grants. You know, whether it's a colleague or it's somebody else that, you know, a peer from my network that I respect and value their opinion of, just to make sure what I'm writing out, you know, makes sense. Because very often, you know, I'm coming from a lens of where, you know, I have an idea of what I want to do, and I have an idea of what the impact could be. But it's very interesting to hear from somebody else their perspective of what they've taken from what I've written. And then, you know, in some cases it helps me clarify what I was trying to do, or in other instances, it opens up a whole new set of criteria that I hadn't considered, and that now I can fold in to that application, or maybe to another, you know, grant or opportunity that comes along. So those are my top tips.
Yeah, so do it in advance and get it proofread and have a discussion, a critical discussion about it with a trusted peer. Let's go to Inés. Top tips.
Yes, so this goes a little bit back to whether you receive it or you don't. Ask for feedback, whether you receive the grant or not. Always ask, you know, why didn't I receive it? Like, what can I do better? And if you receive it, like, what did the jurors, what did the panel say about my application? Because you know that you would know what part of your project or what part of your grant application was the strongest, and you can continue mimicking that in other applications or in the way you're speaking about the project. So that's, I guess that's one tip. The other one is echoing Stephanie, don't leave things to the last minute. I was at Toronto Arts Council's office yesterday, and I believe they had a major deadline for many of their programs, and the system was collapsing because too many people were in it. Program managers were receiving calls because, you know, the system was just too slow. So don't leave things to the last minute. And if for whatever reason you left it to the last minute, or you encounter any technology or personal circumstances that did not allow you to submit the grant in time, email the program manager, explain to them what happened, because chances are that you would be allowed an extension, but they need to know that communication. They need to know what's happening. You know, I manage the awards, and sometimes I get calls or emails from people 3 days after saying, like, I missed the deadline, can I apply? I'm like, well, it's 3 days after. I don't think it will be fair. But sometimes I get, you know, emails from people at 11:30 p.m. saying like, I'm having a lot of difficulty submitting the grant. What can I do? Here's a PDF. I know they tried. I know they can do it. And I give them the extension because they took the time to let me know what were some of the challenges or difficulties they were experiencing. Sometimes it's, emergencies or something that you can foresee that you're not going to be able to submit the application in time. Talk to the program manager, talk to the person that's working that and let them know, saying like, hey, I'm going to be traveling for XYZ, or this is happening in my life. I need an extension. So having that honest communication can get you really far.
Amazing. And Khadija, let's have one top tip from you, and then we can open up for questions. Your top tip.
Read the guideline.
That's the killer one. Yes. Answer the questions, read the guidelines. And yeah, it's like an essay or a visa application in so many ways. You just need to do it in the right order and answer all the questions. Don't leave any gap for, points down is what we're trying to encourage you to do here. Steph, you can bring us to a close for this section.
Can I just have one more comment?
Certainly.
So I think when writing your application, whoever's going to be reading it, they pretend they don't know you. They don't know anything about you. And whatever you're showing them in the application is how they're going to know you as an artist. They are likely not going to be using Google or LinkedIn or anything else to get to know who you are as an artist. So be as clear, and they don't know you. So whatever you present them with is how they're going to get to know you.
And that's 100% part of the guidelines, right? The guidelines always tell you the jury will review the information you provide. For example, 10 minutes of music, and that's that. So yes, you have to provide them with the information that serves your purpose at that point, not necessarily your full portfolio, but actually focused pieces. So yeah, thanks for that. So much more to talk about when we talk about backgrounds, but let's pass on to Steph now.
Absolutely. I think that's a really great tip to end on and does help kind of wrap things up for sure. So we're about to move on to our question and answer period. We have a few minutes left to get through a few questions. But before we get to that point, I do want to thank Fanny for moderating our discussion today, and a big thanks to our guest speakers, Kadija and Inés, for joining us and offering your insights into this area of support for newcomers. I think there's always value in being introduced and reminded of the type of funding opportunities that are available and how to frame your granting journey in line with the work you do. So thank you very much for helping create these entry points and baseline of understanding into this part of supporting one's career in the arts.